Cheryl today, who is speaking in praise of her mother as a memorial special occasion speech from the special occasion speeches manual, speaking in praise. So some of her objectives will be to be inspirational, pointing out qualities of the individual and the meaning of the individual's life, and relating that meaning to our own lives and to present. So let me welcome Cheryl.
President, Toastmasters, Madam Toastmaster of the day, what do you think about when you hear the word praise? What is it? What comes to mind?
Giving feedback.
Lindsay? Giving feedback? Anybody else? What do you think about when you're praising someone?
Singing.
I'm sorry?
Singing.
Singing?
Honor.
Honor. All very good. I'm here today to praise the woman that brought me into the world, my mother. Who is my mother? My mother was born Willie Sue Willie Sue Anderson. She was born in Jackson, Tennessee, 1925. From the parents of Ollie Anderson and Frances Anderson. My mother was the third child of 4 children. This is a little difficult, but very emotional for me. Anyway, my mom, she married my dad in 1948. Why does Willie Sue Anderson's life matter to you guys? My mother was one of the very few women who graduated from college in 1948. Out of approximately 168 million people in the United States, my mother was 4.7% of that group of people. So I looked at it last night, I was like, wow, that's an amazing stat to know that my mother was that part of history and finished her college education. Elementary education was her major. She married my dad in 1948 as well, after she had completed her education. And she was able to teach for a few years. Out of that union, they had 10 children, and I am the second oldest of 10. So they migrated here to the north, in Michigan from the south, after finding that the jobs were plentiful in the automotive industry. So we packed up kids, 3 of us at that time, and moved us north to Michigan, where they settled when my dad found his job in manufacturing. First praise I want to give my mother was the fact that she graduated from college so early in her life. My mom was an avid reader. She loved doing crossword puzzles. She loved doing word puzzles as well. She often tried to encourage my father to do the same thing. She was always handing him a book. Joe, you need to read. You know, this is good for your mind. And Dad, he was always too busy doing something for all these children that they had. So he would always tell her, no, not right now. I've got other things I need to do. So my mom continued throughout her life to be an avid reader. She was not a woman who joined things. She was busy with raising a bunch of kids, so she wasn't one to join clubs or any other activities or things of that nature. But she was a good, solid Christian woman who was able to finally use her education when she passed it on to her children in terms of teaching us. So, sorry. So praise number 2 for my mom. Sorry, we're getting something mixed up. So praise number 2 was the fact that she sacrificed her own personal dreams. Here she was a teacher, and her ever-burgeoning family, growing kids, she was not able to utilize her education and do what she thought she was going to do, her dream of being a teacher full-time. And she had to sacrifice that. And I remember one night as a small child, I'm standing outside my parents' bedroom door, and I could hear them arguing. I was one that was always, my folks called me nosy. I called her curious. So I got my ear to the door, listening. I could hear Mom in there crying. And she's asking Dad, she's almost pleading with him. She says, Joe, when can I return to my teaching career? And I could hear my dad, he quickly answered her, you can't. You know we have all these children. Your place is right here at home, taking care of them and taking care of the house. So then I realized how much of a sacrifice my mother was making. It wasn't until years later that I would realize that anymore. I had often given my dad all the credit for being he was my hero. Anything my dad wanted to do, he was a self-made man. He started a number of small ventures, business ventures that went really well, in addition to his manufacturing job. So I always put him more on the pedestal of being the hero. It's my mom who was actually the true hero, and the sacrifices that she made in order to keep the family alive. So praise number 2 for her would be the fact that she introduced us to culture. So she was able to implement her teaching. And really, I didn't think about it at the time. As a small child, I don't think about that. But she wanted to make sure we were introduced to the arts. So my first visit was to the Chicago Art Institute in Chicago. I was recently there about a week and a half ago. And I always get excited, and I always think about my mom when I go into the Chicago Art Institute and what she did. I went to go in this big, huge, expansive building, marble floors, and it was just for a small child, your eyes are just gazing all over the place, and then you see these large portraits all over the walls. And it was very cathartic for me. She also made sure that we knew what aquatic life was. So we visited aquariums quite often. Large family, we couldn't always go on large trips, so we went to the museums and we went to the aquarium. She also introduced us to wildlife. We went to the zoo quite often. We learned what mammals were and the different mammals. So I praise Mom for that. I also praise Mom for the fact that she put up with my dad. My dad often boasts about her being an educated woman, being a teacher. And every time I looked at her face, there was always this sadness in her eyes. It's almost like, yes, I am this teacher. However, I'm not able to practice the teaching that I thought I was going to be able to do. I praise my mom for numerous things. I know I can't say. My mom, at the end of her life, she had to put up with my dad, who had Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. He forgot who she was. And so that was another chapter in her life that she had to sacrifice again who she was in order to be the strong woman to support my dad and the rest of the family. So to hear somebody calling out a name, but it's not your name, and you've been married over 50 plus years, and you can't remember who you are. He called her his mother's name, because anybody that knows anything about Alzheimer's, they go back to an earlier life. So he called her by his mother's name. North sis, hey North sis. And she's got, Joe, it's me, I'm Sue, it's me. He didn't have that recollection anymore. And I tell her, I said, Mom, Dad loved you with all his heart. Remember all the time when you were sitting there with your gout, your feet swollen, and in pain? Who rubbed those feet? Dad rubbed those feet. That was out of love. So even though he can't remember who you are in the moment, he knows in his heart somewhere what you've done for his life, what you can always took him to go. So try to forgive him and move on from there. So I praise my mother for what she did for our entire family and the sacrifices that she made. And to make me the woman who I am today, who followed in her footsteps, a late life person with finishing my education. But I did because I always remembered I came from good stock, and my mother was early finishing education. And that was something important and something I had to do. So I want you to think about anyone that you should be remembering and giving praise to. Give them praise now while you have the opportunity to. I thank you.